Hey guys, this is Alex Chamberlain, and I just wanted to talk to you about the Turbo Levo. This is the Expert version in XL, and I've had this bike for 4 months, and yeah, I just wanted to do a little review for you guys, tell you guys what's good, what's not, and my experience with the bike. So just to put this out there, I would consider myself like hardcore mountain biker, like a enthusiast, like I love mountain biking, and I never thought I would want to ride an e-bike. And ever since I got this e-bike, it is the bike I've ridden most often, honestly. Like, I probably ride it 3 out of 4 times when I ride mountain bikes. And I only ride my normal mountain bike when I ride with friends that don't have an e-bike yet. So, kind of weird. I've almost like fully converted over. They're just that much fun. When they talk about like there's a turbo smile, that's not a lie. Like, you get on this thing and you're just instantly smiling, and yeah, you just wish the battery lasted longer. But let's hop into the things I do like. This bike is only 46 pounds, I think, how I set it up. So that's extremely light for an e-bike, especially with a 700 watt-hour motor. Competition can be 55 pounds. So this is super light, which helps it still feel like a mountain bike. It obviously still feels heavy, but it's not like when you get to those 55-pound bikes, you kind of get this very sluggish feeling, and it's kind of a different experience than like actual mountain biking. But one of the things I was concerned about when I got it was it's only a DPS shock, and yes, it's a 36, but it's both 150 mil of travel front and rear, and I thought that'd be too little. But on the e-bike, you have a lot more stability in that chassis, and I've never gone down something that I wanted more travel. Obviously, I haven't tried a bike with more travel, but I've been completely satisfied with the 150 mil of travel. But I will say I've had to use the max volume spacer in the rear, and I also have 4 volume spacers in the front, and I'm running 113 PSI, and that's kind of the only way to get enough support. While we're talking about suspension, I feel like on the grip damper, instead of running it fully open, I have to run it like fairly closed, maybe halfway. Yeah, basically kind of halfway around here, just to get a little bit more damping out of the bike. I definitely get the fork to dive a lot. Maybe that's with the additional weight. And then on the rear shock, I had to actually put a little rubber band on it to keep it in the open mode. This thing is super floppy, so you would go downhill and it would switch modes on you and just kind of like switch when you didn't want it to, which actually led to me blowing out a shim in the shock. It's kind of that, might have a picture that I might throw in, but it's kind of that metal shim that helps close. So I don't know how to explain it. It's that metal shim that when you go from open to trail to lockout, that's what kind of closes those ports and opens those ports. The shock actually blew out that shim, so I had to replace that, which is not that big of a deal, but definitely just put a rubber band on your bike. Also, I'm running it in the low position. The high position's almost too high. It's just not worth it. But yeah, the bike has been super balanced. I have to run an XL when I'm normally a large. So this has a 480 mil reach and a 455 mil chainstay. And I love the long chainstay. The thing feels so balanced and so composed in corners. I've been really happy with that. The motor is great. At least the motor functions very well. It has a lot of power. It barely ever surges on you. And as far as I know, 700 watt hour is kind of the biggest battery you can get at the moment. So the powertrain of this and the battery are great for e-bikes in 2020. But some things I had to upgrade. I did a couple rides on the stock tires. They were terrible. I actually crashed a few times, and I'm not blaming it on the tire, but they didn't help. And then I rode the same conditions, same everything, just swapped the tires to the Maxxis Assegais, and was able to pull off all the corners I wanted to at the speed I wanted to go and had less issues. So I would definitely recommend taking those stock tires off immediately and getting a Maxxis tire, either a DHF or an Assegai. And then another upgrade I did is I went to 223 mil Galfer rotors, and I did the Galfer Pro pads. I actually ran a 223 on the rear, but as you can tell by this little metal spot, it flexed a lot in corners and rubbed through the frame. You don't really notice the flex of the rear triangle too much. I think there's a lot going on this bike, but apparently it was enough where it was kind of rubbing the rotor. There had a lot of clearance, but it happens. One thing that isn't my favorite is actually this dropper post. So you can see why right here. Oh, wasn't that fast on that one. It's usually much faster than that. The dropper post goes up and down, I'll give it that, but there's so many better dropper posts in the market, and if I had a couple $100 to blow, I would definitely switch it out, but it hasn't been that bad, so it's still on there. Another thing, this is just an e-bike thing in general, but if you look at, oh, how can I go back? If you look at this cassette, I'm actually missing, starting here, like 6 teeth in a row. Those are all missing. So it is my fault, maybe shifting under load in turbo mode, but it's bound to happen on any e-bike. And unfortunately, that just becomes a disposable part. Yes, I could back off shifting, which I have, and you kind of get used to it after a while, but I can see that happening on the next cassette I buy. So that's just something to think about. I know this is a little random and all over the place, but I also upgraded the brake from the code R to the code RSC. I felt like the R's were okay, but the RSCs made me confident in the bike again, especially with the 223 rotor. And then the stock bar and stem was disgusting, so changed the bar and stem out. And this is what you'd find on the S-Works build. Then obviously changed the grips out and got these super tacky ODI Pro Elites. But yeah, the bike has been fairly good. I already went over some of the negatives, like I was rubbing the frame from flex, blew out that shock and the dropper post. But another issue I'm having is kind of the rear wheel. Let me see if I can do this somewhat smoothly. I guess it doesn't look super wobbly right now, but I end up having to true that kind of every couple rides because it gets so out of true that in corners I'll be rubbing my seat stays and chain stays. But what can you do? It's a 45-pound bike, and the only wheel I can normally ride is a DT EX 1501 or an EX 511. So it typically happens on any wheel that's not a DT for me anyways, so that's kind of going to happen. But it is only 4 months old, and I'm on my second motor, so I didn't have a catastrophic, I did have a catastrophic failure. I didn't have the motor didn't like seize up or do anything too weird. I actually wore out the belt from my understanding. So when I gave it power to the crank, it would just fall through. So basically I couldn't pedal anymore and I had to get a new motor. And I'm getting similar symptoms to that issue that happened before. So I might be on my third motor here soon, and it's only been 4 months. So it's definitely a concern, but the motor was able to be replaced under warranty, so that was really nice. But yeah, I haven't really talked about the ride dynamics of it. I have nothing to complain about. Honestly, it rides great. The head angle is slightly steep, but you don't even notice it. It feels great when you're on the trail. This bike honestly gives you more confidence than almost any analog bike I've ridden, and that might be why I'm riding it more often than my other bikes. I almost feel like I can descend faster on this thing. So I don't know, e-bikes are really fun. If you haven't had one, definitely give it a try. But another one of the benefits of the Levo was that every bolt on this bike pretty much is a 6mm. So you can just run around the bike real quick, make sure everything's tight. So that makes it easy. Instead of having some bolts be a 5, some a 6, some a 8. You can kind of check up the whole bike with 1 or 2 tools. So yeah, that's kind of my review of the Levo. I'm overall happy with it, but at the end of the day, e-bikes have a long way to go. Obviously, wearing out motors as fast as I am, probably not a good thing.